All right, welcome everybody. This is our CPO6 Aloha, Reedville, and Cooper Mountain November meeting. I'm Becky Mornishi. I'm the chair of CPO6, and we've got Ken Seymour here, who is our vice chair. Let's see, I'm just looking for people who need to be promoted. I think we're good now. So we are going to go ahead and start off with our service provider updates. So Lucy, did you want to go first? And we don't have our deputy here yet.
Yeah, I don't see him on there unless someone else is filling in for him that I was not aware of. But I'm Lucy Bailey from the Sheriff's Office, Community Outreach. So I'm your liaison through the Sheriff's Office. I can still share, I guess, the crime map, only I can't necessarily, go into all the stuff that a deputy would, but we can at least take a look at it together again. Let me see. And then the other thing while it's coming up, the one thing that we have started back up that hadn't been going on are our power curve classes. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with those, but they're kind of self-defense and situational awareness courses. They're free. They're for women, for females, but we have started those back up in person. So our first session is actually happening next week. It's closed. The registration opens up 30 days in advance and they cap it at 30 participants. So just keep an eye out through our social media or county sites. They will be ramping back up pretty frequently, about once every 1 to 2 months. So I don't think it's exactly once every month, but it kind of works out. I think it's one class or one course every about 1.5 to 2 months. Generally, it's a Saturday, an 8-hour course. This first kind of, since we've been doing them online, there are 2 4-hour sessions in the evening, but I think most of the time they're going to be an 8-hour session in our public safety building that the Sheriff's Office has. Okay, here we go. So I think hopefully everyone can see that. And I will zoom it out. So this is for October. So here's a whole overview of the area. So obviously we have the congregation of TV Highway, which is pretty typical, but that's the crime map for October. If anyone has questions, which I think there are maybe. No, okay, so we're good. Just let me know and I'll respond hopefully. That's what we got. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Lucy. Any questions for Lucy before we move on?
Looks like there's a lot of recovered stolen. Is that what that really means?
Recovered stolen, yes. That's the pink. So there's some.
Oh wait, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The red and the pink look alike.
I know they do look very similar. So yeah, right. A lot of theft.
I was looking at the red actually.
A lot of theft. A couple recovered stolens, but okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Theft. You're welcome.
Great. All right. Oh, Lucy, Brenda in the chat is asking if you can email it.
Yes, I think so. Okay. Yeah, I will do, Brenda. Thanks.
All right. I think we'll go ahead and go with Nathan from TVF&R, just in case you guys get a call. Hopefully you won't.
Hi there. Thank you. Yep, I'm Nathan Christensen with Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue. I'm a lieutenant here at Station 62, 209th and Blanton. Unfortunately, I don't have the specific call statistics for October, but certainly we are continuing to stay busy with a turn in the weather. For us, just continuing to message safety things like smoke detectors, that they are working and properly, as well as carbon monoxide detectors in the house, that they are present and working. Certainly with the cooler weather, people will be looking at heating their homes. So their central heating system, just make sure that that is annually inspected and cleaned. If you do have a fireplace that you're using to help heat your home, proper disposal of ashes in an approved container away from the house, and any heating source in the house, just making sure that furniture, mattresses, curtains, clothing, all that stuff is well away from the heating source. And then if a space heater is used to heat a specific area of a house, that if you do leave the room, go ahead and turn off the space heater. So definitely smoke detector, CO detector, the heating stuff. And one additional thing, just automotive safety, just making sure your vehicle is in good working order. Definitely having a vehicle breakdown in this kind of weather is a big inconvenience and potentially a safety issue as you look at the weather conditions and it getting darker sooner. So.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, we just changed all of our fire alarms. Yeah.
A good thing to do for sure.
Yes, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here.
Our pleasure.
All right, let's go ahead and go to Justin. Justin, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thanks, Becky. I'm Justin Dyke with Tualatin Valley Water District. I got a couple updates on some local projects and some other stuff. So we're working at the corner of 209th and Farmington Road, building a pressure facility there. And anyone who's driven by it lately has probably noticed there's not a lot of activity going on. We've been caught up in the supply chain dilemma a bit here, getting our subcontractor out to do some concrete work for the sub-level pipe restraints and foundation concrete. So a little bit of a pause while we get all those kinks and the supply chain worked out. We'll be back at that site as early as next week, more likely closer to the 14th of this month, but we continue to progress along out there. And once we get this next round of concrete work for building foundations and pipe restraints, we'll be flying our drone overhead again to try and encapsulate what some of that site looks like, especially because a lot of those underground large transmission water mains will hopefully never be seen again, or at least not for about another 100 years after they're put in. So it is always great to capture what all that infrastructure looks like before it gets hidden away. We are also in the early stages of redesigning and rebuilding 3 pump stations that pump water from Farmington Road up 189th Avenue to the top of Cooper Mountain, right across the street from the nature park. So we are right now just in the early engineering design stages. So folks that are on 189th Avenue may see some survey crews working around our existing reservoirs and pump stations on that street. That is just early engineering design, going through all of the options as far as what we project future water demands to be around the Cooper Mountain area, and as well cost and constructability methods and models for how to build on some of those reservoir sites, because they are space constrained and they are right smack dab in the middle of some residential neighborhoods. And while we pride ourselves on being a good neighbor, we do tend to come in sometimes and be quite the bad neighbor for a couple of years while we rebuild some of our sites. So we always want to be mindful of livability next to our construction projects as they happen, but all of these are for the good of the water system. Some of those, the equipment on there on 189th are at the end of their expected life cycle, especially the reservoir on the lower end of 189th. It was built in 1958. It is something that we've identified as a target for improving earthquake and seismic resiliency within our water system, as an opportunity to replace some existing infrastructure with something that's much more seismically sound. All of our new construction projects, we do build them to withstand a 9.0 Cascadia subduction earthquake. So that would be a great project for us to undertake in the near future. Any construction on 189th would likely not start any sooner than the next 2 years, and would be followed by a large public outreach campaign and component as well. So it is just something, though, in the right now in the early stages. If you see folks walking around our reservoirs, that's what they're doing. They're out doing survey work. They're out doing sometimes drilling into the ground to take geotechnical samples of soil conditions underground for stability and so forth. And then one last thing that we've got going on right now is that in January, early January, we will be pausing the fluoride, pausing our addition of fluoride into the water system for about 3 months, and resuming it at the end of March or early April. This is because one of our largest water transmission mains in our system that brings in water from the Portland Water Bureau is going to be taken offline temporarily. It is in the city of Beaverton, near Beaverton Hillsdale Highway and Western Avenue. We are essentially taking that water pipeline off to cut a giant hole in it and connect an additional service line to it. So it's a 54-inch transmission main. We'll be adding a new 48-inch transmission main that will be coming into commission a few years from now. We're doing this during the winter time when our demands are at their lowest and we're able to use an alternative methods to bring water into our service territory. But by doing these alternative methods, we call the back down system, essentially bringing in water from the West Hills instead of through Beaverton Hillsdale Highway, and bringing it down the hillside. We are unable to fluoridate that water as it enters our distribution system for that time period. So again, starting in January through the end of March is the current time frame. We will be pausing fluoridation of water into the water service area. That would be everyone in CPO6 and the surrounding areas of Aloha, West Hills, Cedar Mill, Cedar Hills, Bethany. All of those areas will be paused and not receiving fluoride in their water. If this is something that is of concern to you, we're always welcome to discuss it, but we do recommend that folks talk with their dentist or medical professionals about any needs for supplementing their fluoride during this time. So again, happy to answer any questions about those 3 updates. And I'll put my contact information in the chat for anyone who wants to reach out one-on-one.
Great, thanks. Can you repeat the dates that there won't be fluoride in the water?
Absolutely. So right now we're just saying as early as January the 1st, but that could change a little bit. And when we turn off fluoridation on, maybe that'd be January the 2nd or the 3rd, it will take a few days for the water that's already fluoridated in the water system to be worked through and enter everyone's homes. So within a few days after that, and we estimate getting our main transmission supply line restored and back into regular service as early as, you know, the end of March. So somewhere in that time frame of then early April, regular fluoridated water service would return to the area.
Great, thank you. Good information.
Thank you.
All right, last but certainly not least, Tim from THPRD, tell us about all the exciting things happening.
All right, well, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Bonin. I work in design development for THPRD. And I have an exciting announcement for November is that the Aloha Swim Center will be open November 14th. Join us for an open house as we reopen the doors to Aloha Swim Center. You're welcome to come and update your THPRD account and register for new programs, meet our staff, and provide input on future programming. We'll also have free swim from the 14th to the 18th in the evenings, where people can come and enjoy the pool once again. As far as events for November, on Saturday the 5th, we have Newt Day at Tualatin Hills Nature Park starting at 12 p.m. Newt Day is a family-friendly event that provides activities designed to inspire exploration of nature during the season when it's tempting to stay inside. But for this event, space is limited and registration is recommended. They have blocks of time starting at noon throughout the day, and it takes about 2 hours. The fee, there's a $5 entry fee for people who live in district and $6.25 for those who live out of district. Also on Saturday the 5th, we have Dia de los Muertos Festival at Conestoga Rec and Aquatic Center at 3 p.m. Come share and discover the traditional Aztec ceremony and dance associated with Dias de los Muertos. The festival features poetry, dance, performance, food, arts, and crafts. And this is a free event and everyone is welcome. On Friday the 11th, we have Veterans Day at Veterans Memorial Park, starting at 8 a.m. In honor of Veterans Day, THPRD invites you to visit Veterans Memorial Park, which is on Southwest 7th Street and Watson Avenue in Beaverton, to write messages that will be shared with the American Legion Post 124 in Beaverton. We'll have a canopy set up with writing utensils and other supplies for you to write an inspiring message. And then on Tuesday, the 15th, we have our virtual programs and events advisory committee meeting at 6:30 p.m. And on Wednesday, the 16th, is the virtual Parks and Facility Advisory Committee meeting at 6 p.m., followed by the Nature and Trails Advisory Committee meeting at 6:30 p.m. And lastly, on Tuesday, the 29th, we start Centro Bienvenida at HMT Administration Office at 4 p.m. Centro is a series of days through December 2nd when financial aid recipients and English language learners are invited to join and discover, teach PRD classes and activities. Bilingual staff are available to offer special registration assistance in Spanish or on request in other languages. We also have information about sports fields, access to gym and pools, birthday and celebration rentals, family events, and much more. So please take time to join us if you need assistance in another language. And as always, we have one-day volunteer opportunities for individuals or families that can be found on our website. And that's what I have for November.
Great. That's exciting about the Aloha pool. Free
Yes,
swim,
another
too.
one is open.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to be here and give us those updates. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We are going to welcome now Bernadette Lee and Jessica Zadev. Bernadette is with TriMet and Jessica is with Metro, and they're going to be telling us a little bit about the TV Highway Transit Project. So you're on.
Thank you so much, Becky.
Yeah, thanks, Becky. Bernadette and I are going to share this presentation, but just by way of quick introduction, Bernadette, do you want to introduce yourself since I'm starting on the presentation?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Bernadette Lee. I work for TriMet in the Community Affairs section, and I am supporting Jess on the TV Highway project.
All right, great. And my name is Jess Sadeb. I'm a principal regional planner at Metro, and I am managing this project for the Metro side of things. And I will share my screen. Okay, hopefully everyone can see a presentation. Excellent. So thanks a lot for being here. Bernadette and I are this is our first stop on the TV Highway Roadshow that we are getting going with a lot of different communities around the corridor that TV Highway passes through. We're going to be visiting a couple Beaverton neighborhood associations, business groups throughout the next couple months. And this effort really is to just do education at this point about the fact that we are doing this project and let you know sort of the extent of it and where we are headed and ways that you can engage going forward. So this project is being undertaken at this point by Metro, and you may wonder why Metro and why not TriMet. This is basically the way that most major corridor studies in the project in the Metro area happen. So something like the Orange Line when it started, or Southwest Corridor, those projects start with Metro as the regional planning agency, and then we hand them over to TriMet as we move forward into getting closer to design and operations. So this project right now really has two pieces to it. It's the public transit project and then also an equitable development strategy. And we will explain what each of those two things are. And just to be very clear what our study area is, it is the extent of the line 57 as it is today. So right now, folks may ride this bus on a regular basis, or you may see it when you're out driving on TV Highway. It runs from Beaverton Transit Center in the east all the way out to Forest Grove and just to the almost to the western edge of the city out there. So this is the area that we're studying, and we are figuring out what the transit project will be along this corridor. transit projects like this are a long game. We are very early in the process. This is our best guess at this point, I will say, of what a transit project delivery would actually look like. And this is kind of the earliest that it would happen. So, right now we're in that 2022-23 band right there. This project is funded by a HOPE grant, which, heck if I can remember what the acronym actually stands for, but it is a large federal grant program that funds transit planning and design projects through areas of greater need and historically lower resources. What we're headed toward in 2023 is a locally preferred alternative and early design. And this is basically a project that is going to need federal funding, which is what most of the rest of this timeline has to do with. So if all goes well, we'll head into project development, which means that we are getting into engineering and environmental, and that takes several years. And then also, if we're lucky and if we do our work right, both in this phase of the project and future ones, we'll receive federal funding in several years and then go through construction. So all of this is to say we're very early in this process, and it will be a lot of opportunity to continue conversations that we're starting tonight over the next couple of years about what this project really looks like on the ground. Many of you on the call may be aware that TV Highway has a long history of planning by many different agencies throughout the region. So whether that is the Aloha Reedville study that I assume some folks here either know about or participated in or have friends or neighbors who did, Aloha Tomorrow, these have come from different agencies throughout the region. The latest thing that you may have heard from Metro on this front was several years ago, TV Highway was one of the projects that was in the Get Moving bond, which unfortunately did not pass. At that point, the projects on TV Highway, there were several of them. And the one that we're really talking about now, and that this specific effort that Bernadette and I are working on focuses on the transit aspect that was part of that bond proposal. So why are we working out here? I'll say that at that point, I was not working at Metro in 2020. Actually just joined the agency a couple months ago, but that project really rose to the top of the pile in the bond, in part because of the population that we're serving out on TV Highway. The two maps on the screen show that this is part of the region that has definitely a larger percent of communities of color, both the Washington County and the region, and also a larger percentage of low income population. Metro has developed what we call equity focus areas for the region, and nearly all of the corridor along TV Highway throughout all of the communities is an equity focus area, meaning that it's part of the region that as a regional planning agency, we do try to direct more of our funding and attention toward. Right now it's served, as we said, by the line 57, and that's what we're studying. And the 57 has the 5th highest ridership within the entirety of the TriMet bus system. It had the 2nd highest ridership retention during COVID, which means that really folks along TV Highway depend on this bus for their transportation. We see that in the fact that people just kept riding it throughout COVID. And also in a rider survey that TriMet did in 2021, 70% of folks who responded to that said that they don't have access to a vehicle. So we're really trying to serve that population who depends very daily on the bus to meet their needs. And I'm going to hand it off to Bernadette to talk about what that transit project we're planning for could actually look like.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jess. So as Jess mentioned, back in 2020, there was the bond measure, which included the bus rapid transit project for this corridor. In this project, we're really looking at moving those plans forward and continuing to progress those plans. We are studying the line 57, but we aren't exactly sure. We're just so early in the process. We're not exactly sure what that will look like. But this current project will produce a concept design or a locally preferred alternative. And at this phase, we look at the route, the stops, the terminus, like the start and end point, and the mode, which has been decided on as bus. Although stops are identified in this stage, they are continued to be refined in later stages in planning as well. And this project is focused on those spaces at or near transit and is not looking at kind of the full roadway, but instead just focusing on the transit kind of centers. This picture in the slide is TriMet's new FX division, which is our first frequent express service in our service area on Division Street in Southeast Portland and out to Gresham. It is an example of what the transit improvements on TV Highway could look like. And we will also be looking at the feasibility of electric buses along this line. Next slide, please. So the Transit Project Steering Committee approved 5 overarching project goals last spring. And these goals are to improve the travel experience for transit riders, in particular communities of color and low-income communities. And by that, we mean we're specifically looking at safety, time, and reliability. Also advancing local goals related to land use, transportation, equity, and climate, and that the project is supported by the community, in particular transit riders and communities of color. Next slide, please. 2 additional goals are that the project is feasible to fund, construct, and operate, and then also that we are able to move into the next phase, which is project development. Next slide, please. So there are some challenges with planning a transit project along this corridor. There are many needs on TV Highway and sharing very limited space. So there's people walking, rolling, biking, there's buses, there's trucks, moving freight, there's the train. So all of those, different uses are using the same space. Also, the railroad and existing development limits some of the design options. And this just means that in some areas along the corridor, the railroad is very close to the roadway and the existing bus stops. And then in that same spot across the street, there are buildings that are built right up to the sidewalk edge. And this just creates, just really limits the space and results in kind of limiting our design options. Also, the corridor is long. It's about 16.6 miles long. And then federal funding rules will also dictate the initial project size. Next slide. So this project has 3 committees that are providing input. We have a technical and a policy working group, which are made up of staff from the cities along the corridor, the county, Oregon Department of Transportation, TriMet, and Metro. And then we have a third group, the TV Highway Steering Committee, which is made up of elected officials, agency leadership, and community organization leaders. And then I'm going to pass the presentation back to Jess, who will share some information about the equitable development strategy.
Great, thanks, Bernadette. So this project is going to be the second one in the region where Metro works with community to create an equitable development strategy. I should say it's the second/third 82nd Avenue, the transit project we're undertaking there at the same time, is also going to be creating an EDS, which is what I'll call it for short. An equitable the example of this that we have so far in the region is from Southwest Corridor, and what the EDS really is it is a separate effort from the transit project that sort of piggybacks on this effort that will eventually result in major investment along the corridor. This is really a community-led strategy to support equitable development along the corridor. We know that it's possible when large projects like this happen that there is some amount of displacement that can result from land speculation by developers as property values increase. It's pretty clear that this is less the case with a bus project than it is with a heavy rail one, but it's something that we as a region really want to acknowledge the possibility of happening and take the opportunity to work with community to identify those needs that they have that could really lead to preservation of housing, of businesses, and just the things that are important to community members along the entirety of the TV Highway corridor. And it's great that we have the Southwest Corridor project as an example. And the thing that I think is really interesting about that is that, as I said earlier, the bond was unsuccessful in 2020. And you may remember that Southwest Corridor was another one of the projects in there. Right now, that transit line, you know, there's some murmurs about figuring out what could happen with it in the future. But the transit line project is not moving forward at the moment, whereas the equitable development strategy is like charging full steam ahead. They are pursuing grants from foundations. They are moving things forward with community-based organizations. And I think that that just demonstrates how separate these two efforts can be, but really that the momentum behind an equitable development strategy can help it move forward. Even though we would like the transit project on TV Highway to certainly happen, just saying that as an example in Southwest, you know, the equitable development strategy is happening. Thankfully, a lot of the same folks who were involved in that effort are involved in this one as part of our equity coalition. Many of these groups are probably familiar to folks on the phone as organizations that are out there in community working with folks along the TV Highway corridor. These are, you know, some really well-known and well-established organizations. And then we have also gotten the opportunity to partner as well with some small business owners and residents who are community leaders to be part of this group, and even some new and up and coming groups. The acronym there, AFRIC, is a very small and new group that works with the African refugee community. So this is the group who is really crafting the equitable development strategy, and they are being led in that effort by staff from Unite Oregon, which is also really exciting to see a community organization at the head of this community-led effort. So where are we right now and where are we headed just with this portion of the project? So both of these got going in sort of spring, summer 2022. We have developed purpose and need and those goals that Bernadette shared earlier for the transit project. We are right now working on evaluating implementation scenarios and figuring out what's feasible for that federal funding that we would eventually be pursuing in terms of a project. We're working as well on preliminary design, and that's going to stretch all the way through until the spring. And hopefully we'll be getting to that locally preferred alternative, that's what LPA stands for, in the summer of 2023. And the EDS is running alongside the transit project. We're working with that equity coalition to identify actions and eventually to publish a strategy in the spring and early summer as well. And you'll see that public engagement runs throughout. You know, as I said, in this phase, we're really talking to groups like you all and just kind of getting the word out there about the project. But there will be opportunities along the way and to engage further in the project, both projects, the transit project and the EDS. And Bernadette's going to talk a bit about those.
Perfect. Thank you. So so a few ways that you can stay informed and provide feedback over the next month are you can sign up for Project to Email newsletter on Metro's webpage. And Jess, do you mind putting that in the chat? Also, Metro, there will be equitable development strategy workshops in March and June. And then an online transit project feedback platform will be available in April, May of next year. And then we just wanted to bring up this timeline one more time. As just mentioned before, the transit project is right up there at the beginning in conceptual design. This the timeline is really a best case scenario. There's a lot of ifs on this timeline, But if everything keeps moving along and we get funding at each stage, really the construction would be completed at the earliest as and sometime in 2029. I did want to bring this back up just to highlight that this is our first stage, but there'll be lots of additional stages where there'll be opportunities to provide feedback. And I think that's all of our slides. Does anybody have any questions?
I'll stop sharing so we can see each other as folks have any questions.
Yeah, that was a great presentation. Thank you.
Is there a slide that compares what it is today versus what it's going to look like in 2029? Or, I mean, it's a great presentation, but I'm not really sure what you're building or what you're constructing.
Sure. So that the one example that we had in there is the only one that exists so far in the region that Bernadette talked about, which is the FX2 that just opened up on Division in Southeast Portland and Gresham. What we're looking at is treatments like potentially some transit priority lanes along the corridor, which would be lanes that are just for buses and turns, so people making right turns and buses. We would be looking at special signals that hook in to just let the buses proceed through traffic signals in advance of other traffic. We would be having a fleet of buses that's similar to the one that's out there on Division today, which means that they're 60-foot buses. They more than, Bernadette, what, 80% more, 60% more
60% more.
Yeah. So longer buses, more doors, which means that people can get on and off faster, so the bus stops for a shorter amount of time. And one other key piece is that we're looking at figuring out where the optimal locations for stops are, which is a way of saying that there will be fewer stops along the corridor. And that is part of what helps the bus move faster, and that's part of what we are going to be talking to community about the most, because we know that everyone gets very attached to their specific bus stop. And I know I actually live very close to Division, and I was really happy that the one that is nearest to my house didn't go away. But that's a conversation that starts at this point in the project and honestly continues probably through 2026, I would say. I know that the team that worked on the FX continued along having that conversation about stop locations for a long time, but the analysis that we've started to do for the project also shows that that is the biggest time savings. And time savings is part of making sure that people can get to work and school on time and that the bus is reliable for them to do that. So those are kind of the key features in terms of design that would be happening. As Bernadette said, it's a constrained corridor by a railroad on one side and development on the other. So we're not talking about things like adding lanes. And actually, sorry, last key part of what would be going on out there is access to transit. One of the biggest challenges of the 57 today is that even though there are stops there, there are not crossings to all of them. And so people have to run across 5 lanes of traffic that's moving really fast, and it's dark, and it's unsafe, patently unsafe. And so we would be looking at additional crossings to those stations and also some amount of additional sidewalk to get to station locations where there's not sidewalk as well today. So we want to make sure that both the transit is there and that it's safe to access it.
Right, great. I know it's really preliminary, so you're still kind of formulating everything, but it's good to kind of have some bullet points maybe on your future presentations to other folks, what your plans are. You stated them really good, so that's great. Thank you.
Sure.
Great. We have a couple of questions from Steve in the chat. The first one is, will you be taking this presentation to the Aloha Business Association? And then the second one is there was to be some type of bike route from Washington County to the coast, and it was to run along Shaw or Blanton. Is this part of your plan or something running along on its own?
First question, I have reached out to the Aloha Business Association, and I am going to reach out to them again. We're trying to get in touch with them to do the same presentation there. We are presenting to several other business organizations in the county, but we're trying to talk to them. I can't remember what that bike route is actually called. It has sort of a something to the coast name. It's not part of our project. It's a separate effort.
Great. And then Richard is asking, would there be some type of local transit along with the express line?
Bernadette, do you want to take that one?
So this line, we're really looking at still having a lot of stops. So you know, sometimes I think when people think about express lines, you might be thinking about kind of similar to other places you've been where it's like one every mile, but really we're still looking for pretty frequent stops throughout the system. So at this point, we're not looking at an underlying service. I think the goal is to provide in general throughout the route about spacing about a third mile. But that is not a firm number. It kind of ebbs and flows with you know, where it makes sense to put stops. But it would be, you know, pretty frequent stops still. We want to optimize stops, but it's not going to be so infrequent that like an underlying service would be necessary.
Oh, Becky, I think you're muted, but
yeah, sorry. Eric, you can go ahead with your question.
Would someone give me a thumbs up if they can hear me? Thank you. Bernadette and Jess, thank you for the presentation. You clearly have a good navigation of your mutual organizations. I'm a past volunteer with CPO6, and I was chaired during the time of the Aloha Reedville study and the TB Highway study. I work for myself in a building next to the Walgreens on TB Highway and 198th, which is where we may have a Cooper Mountain feeder line connect, one of the short buses that's being proposed. Very candidly, I'm petrified, I'm scared. I have no tangible results of things I can prove that I see as actual change that came about from the Aloha Reedville study or the TB Highway study. Granted, they were studies. What I see is basically tinkering with something that works. We know that transit ridership on the 57, which has been a fairly stable line for the past 50 years, is consistently high. And to spend money to make something that works, you know, still work, I don't know if that's really a good use of money. Unfortunately, the land use connection means that we're adding an incredible amount of people that are going to stress the bus line. And I can understand the need to grow with that, but I don't see the demographics, particularly in South Hillsborough, providing transit riders. And with the metro connection, we've added to the urban growth boundary when we've already had TB Highway at 100% of or beyond of design capacity. So we have some really serious issues with safety. And I'd like to maybe conclude on my comments with kind of a different take on the equity lens. In our business, we have experienced fallout from whether it's coronavirus, an economic downturn, the drug crisis, and we're basically fighting a battle in our parking lot with people who are shoplifting, public defecation, drug use, trash, vagrancy, and the bus stop doesn't help. It triggers a lot of calls for public service. And this is already on top of an amazing amount of public service calls we've got because sick people just pass out cold and waiting in line for drugs at the pharmacy at Walgreens. I guess just concluding on this, we have something that works, and I don't particularly see the need, scope, or purpose in order to expand the service with cutouts and extra lights when we could just add more bus service, just do what we do more frequently. So the statement of need and purpose really needs to be more clear. It's lacking in your presentation. And I'll conclude on that point and remain available if you have follow-up questions for me. And again, thank you both for the presentation.
Yeah, thanks for those comments, Eric. And I mean, thanks for, obviously continuing to be engaged with the community after having been involved with other planning processes. This is not something to hide behind, but like I said, I joined Metro about 2 months ago, so I'm still getting my feet under me in terms of familiarizing myself with our project and the past work on the corridor as well. One of the analyses that we're going to be undertaking soon is about the delay that the 57 experiences today. So that is one thing that we are going to be trying to address with this. The bus is, runs somewhat on schedule, but that is not necessarily an ideal schedule to serve the needs along TV Highway. So, we do see that growth is coming. The Metro model does project even more growth actually on the western end of the corridor that we're talking about, more than along the eastern side. And when I say that, I'm saying eastern side being sort of Beaverton, Aloha, Hillsborough, and then the western side being Forest Grove, Cornelius is actually where more of that growth is projected to happen up until 2040. So we do see that need coming. And there's also part of this project that is just to make the service out there better as well, in the sense of it being a sort of more respectful and respectable mode to take the bus out there. Right now, it's not the most dignified experience to stand in a place that has no shelter, that has no sidewalk, that has no crossings. So the upgrade of a line to be a place that actually has the types of amenities that a line like the FX2 does is also an enhancement for the community. Bernadette, I don't know if you have any thoughts about the sort of more personal safety and security questions that Eric was raising, because I think we've talked about those in some prior meetings together.
Well, first I wanted to loop back a little bit on the amenities that are out in the FX line. So things that you would see on that line are like shelters at every stop, trash receptacles, seating at every stop, a platform that is the height of the bus. So then the bus doesn't have to do kind of that kneeling motion if an individual with a mobility device is accessing the bus. So there's all sorts of amenities that really make that experience more enjoyable for a rider. And also this project creates an opportunity to really improve safety, which Jess mentioned before. So building those sidewalks, building crossings, so that people can more safely access bus stops. So I also, I hear your concerns about safety and security around the bus stop. TriMet operates within the larger challenges in the region, but this is really an important topic, here at TriMet. And we have been putting, more security on the system. And I don't know if you saw this, but recently the board did do a first reading for a new ordinance that will be kind of increasing the seriousness of behavior issues on the system. So TriMet really is looking at making it more of a safe and secure experience riding our system. Are there any other questions?
I just want to read out Eric's comment. Bathrooms are a topic here. For the service members involved, TriMet needs to address this. Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just want to make sure I get those read out so that if people go back and watch the video, because they can't see the chat. So,
Yes. Great.
Mhm.
all right. Any other questions? Oh, yep. Ken.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't there a 57 Express? It's been a while since I've ridden the 57. There's no Express.
No,
Is that
it's
something you're considering? Because, I mean, I have ridden the 57. It's been a long time. Boy, there were a lot of stops. It's like I'm never going to get to my destination. So I don't know if you think about some kind of an express bus that comes every so often or not. So
I mean, that is the impact that you're talking about in terms of moving faster along the corridor is what we are trying to do. So there would be fewer stops, but that would actually be the service that is out there. They would be about, as Bernadette said, every third of a mile, although that would be an average along the corridor. So it would stop less frequently than it does today.
I think also it's important, kind of one interesting thing that we've found when we look at ridership is that most people who are riding the line 57 are actually, the average trip is around 5 miles. So the average rider is not riding Forest Grove all the way to Beaverton and then into downtown, which would be kind of a situation where an express would make more sense. But having, most people are using line 57 for getting to work, going grocery shopping, doing kind of those short, smaller trips, they're everyday kind of life trips, and less for job or for employment. So that's really where we think that the bus rapid transit solution is a good solution for this corridor.
right. Well, you do have a few high-tech businesses along that corridor. So at the time I took 57, I was living out in East Portland, so it was a long trip.
Yeah,
but
That is a trip.
right.
Great. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you.
great.
Thank you for that
Thank you.
presentation.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks.
We do have a quick comment. Seems to me that reducing the stops for the purpose you mentioned, shopping, etc., would not be the best. Okay. Thank you for your comments, Richard. Great. Yes. Thank you so much for spending this time here with us tonight and giving us a heads up on that. And did you already post a link or anything in the, oh, there we go. Okay. To the Hope Grant. I see that. Okay. All right. Well, thank you and good luck with your upcoming presentations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. We're pretty much done for tonight, but Ken, I wanted to know if you wanted to spend any time talking about the project that you've been working on.
Well, it's for those that are still here that are interested. We've been working on with the city of Beaverton on the Cooper Mountain plan, and it's still somewhat in a lot of flux. The city just came back with a new proposal last week on their density proposals and where they're going to be putting multifamily, this and that and the other thing. And we have a couple of questions that we're trying to raise with the city of Beaverton because we're trying to obviously eliminate some traffic concerns. And I know they're looking at traffic, but 175th carries a lot of traffic, and they're planning on putting a lot of high density housing on the top of the hill, which goes right by 175th. So we're trying to steer the city of Beaverton, which I'm not sure we're being very successful yet, to distribute that density over the entire development plan a little bit better. And more specifically over maybe shoving some of it over towards Grabhorn Road, which should alleviate some of the traffic. So those are kind of some of the issues that at least the CPO is working on right now. And I'd certainly love to hear from the public on any other comments they have. I don't have the link prepared, readily available to submit here so people can go to the city of Beaverton. But if you Google the city of Beaverton's Cooper Mountain Plan, that data is readily available there. So that's kind of a quick nutshell of where we're at right now.
Great. Yeah, thank you for doing that work, and thank you for the update. Eric, did you have a comment?
Maybe.
Eric, if you're talking, I cannot hear you. You might.
I'm going to
Oh,
try
there you
this
go.
one more time. My apologies.
I hear you. Okay.
First, thank you both for your work. I've served in leadership with CPO6, and it's not all glamorous. Ken, I have heard, and I'm wondering if you can confirm, that Beaverton's plan to run 175th into 185th has been abandoned because they have discovered the topography makes it unfeasible, which leads us to a mess if true. So first question is have you heard the same thing?
Well, I'm not sure specifically what street you're talking about. There was a bypass that was planned for 185th, and that was shot down. It was going through, kind of cutting through Gassner to Kemmer. Wasn't really saving that much, but I haven't heard anything else about that. And I've been trying to actually get some more information from the city of Beaverton on what the actual future traffic plan is. I don't have that data yet.
Ken, thank you for that. I guess if I raise the institutional memory of CPO6, circa 2010, 2011, I was chair, and the city of Beaverton, in a very blustery way, came in and tried to commandeer time and get their plan out. The sales pitch back then was that a holistic plan would be delivered. All three sub areas, South Cooper Mountain, Central Cooper Mountain, and North Cooper Mountain, which was brought into the urban growth boundary in 2003, if I recall correctly, would all be handled holistically. Uniformly, one of the consistent things about planning is a transportation plan as a framework, arguably the skeleton of the plan. Unfortunately, Beaverton is trying to plan without a cohesive transportation plan as its backbone. And this is of incredible concern. So I'd like to kind of conclude with a comment for conjecture. Right now, I'm 55 years old. Next March, I'll be age 56. We're looking at a 20 or 30 year planning build out. And without new roads, essentially, I have to rely on one road to access the rest of the world, and that's Southwest 175th. Beaverton is trying to set the expectation for the rest of my natural life, pregnant pause, my life, I will endure traffic disruptions. I already have, and I've been pretty vocal about life-threatening traffic disruptions. When they dropped the backup water supply pipeline through 175th, I was incorrectly flagged into an active construction zone. I literally threw my hands out the window and said, direct me correctly, so that I didn't drive into a ditch or run over somebody because a flagger messed up. 20 years of that in my senior years, not looking forward to that. And we don't have a transportation plan, nor do we seem to have a good plan for managing open space.
Well, let me interrupt you real quick. Let me interrupt you real quick.
I'll end there. Thank you.
No, I was just going to say, I did trade emails with Casera today, actually, asking her about the latest transportation plan. And she said that they're actually going to be publishing one early next week. So before I dig into it more myself, I was going to wait for her to publish that and take a look at it and see exactly what's on what they're proposing. So
Ken, that's fantastic, but that's also 12 years late. That we should have had a transportation plan going into all three sub areas back in 2010, 2011. And it's late.
Right. Well, yeah, I know they're also trying to juggle around wildlife and, those kind of habitat areas too. So it's really it's a tough development that they're trying to do because there's so much terrain issues and, as you know, wildlife habitat and all that. So anyway, let's wait and see what happens on Monday or Tuesday next week, because I can hook up with you and we can chat about it after we take a look at it.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, great. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to do our frequent request for people to join our steering committee. If these are subjects that interest you, then please feel free to join us on our steering committee. You can email us at cpo6leaders@gmail.com. I put that in the chat. This meeting has been recorded and will go up on YouTube. And I do post the link to the video on Facebook, but I know not everybody is on Facebook. So if you would like the link to the video on YouTube, go ahead and send us an email and I will send that to you. And with that, Ken, anything else do you think?
No, that's it for me.
All right. Any general questions? Anything you would like to see as topics? You can either let us know now before we jump off, or you can email those to us too. Oh, great. Yeah, thank you, Brenda. I appreciate having you here. All right. Well, everybody have a good night. Be prepared for tomorrow. I hear it's going to be pretty windy and rainy. So take care. And yeah, have a great holiday. We'll see you in December.
You bet. Thanks, everybody.